God puts Abraham to a great test. Now, my opinion is just my opinion, aside from anything Jesus did, because everything Jesus did was beyond compare. But aside from what Jesus did, as far as faith, I think that what Abraham does next is the biggest act of faith towards God in all the Bible. Okay, and I'll show you why now. So Abraham's son Isaac grew into an older boy. And Abraham and Sarah loved Isaac very much, of course. He was their son. Right now, he's their only son because they sent Ishmael away. God put Abraham to a very difficult test to see if Abraham would follow God faithfully. God told Abraham to take his son Isaac into the mountains, into the land of Moriah, and once they were there, to offer Isaac as a sacrifice to God, which means God said, Abraham, I want you to take your son Isaac up to this place I'm telling you to, and I want you to kill him for me as a sacrifice for me. Abraham listened to God and trusted that somehow he would make everything okay. Somehow he'd make everything okay. This is important. God promised Abraham that you will have countless descendants, okay? And he said, your descendants are all going to come through Isaac. Now, Isaac didn't have any children yet. So, if God had Abraham kill Isaac to sacrifice him to God before Isaac had any children, it would be impossible for Isaac to produce these countless descendants for Abraham like God told him he would. Impossible in the natural. Just like it was impossible in the natural for his wife Sarah to give them a son at age 90. Abraham learned from that faith failure that he had that, wait a minute, if God promised something, even if I don't understand how this could possibly happen in the natural, if he said it, I'm going to trust him. And he trusted him on this biggest thing now. Take your only son that you have now and kill him, sacrifice him for me. So Abraham took his son Isaac, whom he loved very much, on the several-day journey to the place that God instructed him to offer up Isaac as a sacrifice. When they got there, Abraham bound Isaac, laid him on the altar that he made, and pulled out a knife to kill him like God instructed him to do. As Abraham lifted up his knife to kill Isaac, to sacrifice him to God, as God told him to do, God immediately appeared and yelled, Abraham, Abraham! And Abraham stopped and said, Here am I. And God said to Abraham, this is so important, God said, Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, seeing that you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Okay, it's very important. Okay, God considers this his only son, even though he has another one, because he's going to be the heir. So, but let me read this one more time. I'm going to read all the way through. This is what God said to Abraham. Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, seeing that you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. By myself I have sworn, declares the Lord, because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son. I said it twice. Abraham, because you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. I will surely bless you, and I will surely multiply your children and grandchildren as stars in the heaven and as the sand on the seashore. And in your children and grandchildren shall all the nations of the earth be blessed because you have obeyed my voice. God said that in Genesis 22, chapter 11 to 18. Now I want to give you something to think about here, okay? God said it twice to Abraham. Because you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me, I will do this for you. I want you to think about this. I don't know the answer, but I want you to think about it. Is it possible that because God was able to find just one man, one person, who was willing to not withhold his only son, but offer him up as a sacrifice for God, could that possibly have helped God decide to actually later not withhold his only son, but offer him up as a sacrifice for all of man? Because, let me rephrase that, because God found one man who loved God enough that he would give him his only son, but God stopped him from doing that. Did that prompt God to actually give up his only son for man to pay as a sacrifice for our sins? Something to think about. Okay? what Abraham did might have been even bigger than you realize. The faith of one man. Because Abraham trusted God and tried to do this most difficult task that God asked him to do, which is offer up his only son to God, would that make it, God would make it so that Abraham's children and grandchildren would be the ones to found the country of Israel. Additionally, kings would come from Abraham's offspring. You had King David, you had King Solomon, you had King Rehoboam, and other kings. More importantly, Jesus Christ himself would later be one of the offspring of Abraham. Okay? Now remember, Jesus' father was God, but he had human parents on earth, Mary and Joseph.